So, hello and welcome back to what is going to be a very short chapter, but the next chapter is decently long and they aren't going to clump well together. And I just had my teeth all adjusted, so I'm in a little bit of pain. So, honestly, I'm not going to complain too much that this is a short chapter because I want to take some Tylenol and curl up in bed. If you watched my video this morning, you know I had quite the day today, and I walked almost 10 miles today. So your narrator is sleepy and is actually quite excited to see a not long chapter. So, yeah. But yes, in our last double chapter, we discovered that Mr. Stryver thought that he could just walk on in and announce his intention to marry Miss Manette and have everybody immediately frolic and be happy about it. And when it didn't, he seems to be planning something. I don't know what he's planning, but I get the feeling it's not good. And darn it, I wish he had never seen Miss Manette because I I feel like there's some intrigue coming. So, we are now going to read about it sounds like probably Sydney Carton chapter because the chapter is titled The Fellow of No Delicacy. So, if Mr. Stryker was the fellow of great delicacy, then I'm assuming that this next chapter will be about Sydney. Anyway, so that is what we're going to do. This is book 2, The Golden Thread of the book A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. And we are going to read chapter 13, The Fellow of No Delicacy. If Sydney Carton ever shone anywhere, he certainly never shone in the house of Dr. Manette. He had been there often, during a whole year, and had always been the same moody and morose lounger. When he cared to talk, he talked well, but the cloud of caring for nothing which overshadowed him with such a fatal darkness was very rarely pierced by the light within him. And yet he did care something for the streets that environed that house, and for the senseless stones that made their pavements. Many a night he vaguely and unhappily wandered there, when wine had brought no transitory gladness to him. Many a dreary daybreak revealed his solitary figure lingering there, and still lingering there when the first beams of the sun brought into strong relief removed beauties of architecture and spires of churches and lofty buildings, as perhaps the quiet time brought some sense of better things, else forgotten and unobtainable, into Sydney's mind. Of late, the neglected bed in the Temple Court had known him more scantily than ever, and often, when he had thrown himself upon it, in no longer than a few minutes he had gotten up again and gone back and haunted the other neighborhood. On a day in August, when Mr. Stryver, after notifying to his jackal that he had thought better of marrying, had carried his delicacy into Devonshire, and when the sight and scent of flowers in the city streets had some waifs of goodness in them for the worst of health, and a little health for the sickliest, and a little youth for the oldest, Sydney's feet were still treading these same stones. From being irresolute and purposeless, his feet became animated by an intention, and in the working of that intention, his feet took him to the doctor's door. He was shown up the stairs and found Lucy at her work alone. She had never been quite at her ease with him, and received him with some little embarrassment as he seated himself near her table, but looking up at his face, in the interchange of the first few commonplaces, she saw a change there. "I fear you are not well, Mr. Carton?" "No, but the life I lead, Miss Manette, is not conducive to health. What is to be expected of or by such a man?" "It is not, forgive me, I have begun the question on my lips, a pity to live no better life?" "God knows it's a shame." "Then why do you not change it?" Looking gently at him again, she was surprised and saddened to see that there were tears in his eyes. There were tears in his voice as well as he answered, "It's too late for that. I shall never be better than I am. I will sink lower and be worse." He leaned an elbow on her table and covered his eyes with his hand. The table trembled in the silence that followed. She had never seen him softened, and she was much distressed. He knew this, and without looking at her, said, "Pray forgive me, Miss Manette. I break down before the knowledge of what I want to say to you. Will you hear me?" "If it will do you any good, Mr. Carton, if it would make you happier, that would make me very glad." "Bless you for your sweet compassion." He unshaded his face after a little while and spoke steadily. "Don't be afraid to hear me. Don't shrink from anything I say. I am like one who died young. All my life might have been." "No, Mr. Carton. I am sure that the best part of it might still be. I am sure that you might be much, much worthier of yourself." "Say of you, Miss Manette. And although I know better, although in the mystery of my own wretched heart I know better, I will never forget your saying so." She was pale and trembling. He came to her relief with a fixed despair of himself which made the interview unlike any other that could have ever been held. "If it had been possible, Miss Manette, that you could have returned the love of the man you see before you, self flung away, wasted, drunken, poor creature of misuse that you know him to be, he would have been conscious this day and hour, in spite of his happiness, that he would bring you misery, bring you sorrow and repentance, blight you, disgrace you, pull you down with him. I know very well that you can have no tenderness for me. I ask for none. I'm even thankful that it can never be." "Without it, can I not save you, Mr. Carton? Can I not recall you, forgive me, to a better course? Can I in no way repay your confidence? I know this is a confidence," she said, after a bit of hesitation. "I know you would say this to no one else. Can I turn it to no good for yourself, Mr. Carton?" He shook his head. "To none, Miss Manette, to none. If you will hear me through a very little more, all you could ever do for me is then done. I wish you to know that you have been the last dream of my soul. In my degradation, I have not been so degraded but that the sight of you with your father, and of this home made into such a home by you, has stirred old shadows that I thought had died out of me. Since I knew you, I've been troubled by a remorse that I thought would never reproach me again. And I have heard whispers from old voices impelling me upward that I thought were silent forever. I have had unformed ideas of striving afresh, beginning anew, shaking off sloth and sensuality, and fighting out the abandoned fight. A dream, all a dream that ends in nothing, and leaves the sleeper where he lay, but I wanted you to know that you had inspired it. Will nothing of it remain? Oh, Mr. Carton, think again. Try again. No, Miss Manette. All through it, I have known myself to be quite undeserving, and yet I have had the weakness, and still have the weakness, to wish you to know what a sudden mastery you kindled me, heap of ashes that I am, into fire. A fire, however, inseparable in its nature from myself, quickening to nothing, lighting nothing, doing no service, just idly burning away. Since it is my misfortune, Mr. Carton, to have made you more unhappy than you were before you knew me. Don't say that, Miss Manette, for you would have reclaimed me if anything could have. You are not the cause of my becoming worse. Since the state of your mind that you describe is, by all events, attributable to some influence of mine, this is what I mean, if I can make it plain. Can I use no influence to serve you? Have I no power for good with you at all? The utmost good that I am capable of now, Miss Manette, I have come here to realize. Let me carry through the rest of my misdirected life the remembrance that I opened my heart to you, last of all the world, and that there was something left in me at this time which you could pity. Which I entreated you to believe again and again most fervently with all my heart. Capable of better things, Mr. Carton, you are. Ask me to believe it no more, Miss Manette. I have proved myself, and I know better. I distress you. I draw fast to an end. Will you let me believe, when I remember this day, that the last confidence of my life was reposed in your pure, innocent heart, and that it lies there alone and will be shared by no one? If that is a consolation to you, then yes. Not even by the dearest one ever to be known but to you? Mr. Carton, she said after a pause, the secret is yours. It is not mine. I promise to respect it. Thank you. And again bless you. He put her hand to his lips and moved towards the door. Be under no apprehension, Miss Manette, of my ever resuming this conversation by even a word. I will never refer to it again. If I were dead, that could be no surer than it is right now. In the hour of my death, I will hold sacred the one good remembrance, and I will thank you and bless you for it, that my last avowal of myself was made to you, and that my name and faults and miseries were gently carried in your heart. May your heart otherwise be light and happy. He was so unlike what he had ever shown himself to be, and it was so sad to think how much he had thrown away, and how much he every day kept down and perverted, that Lucy Manette wept mournfully for him as he stood looking at her. Be comforted, he said. I am not worth such feeling, Miss Manette. An hour or two hence, and the low companions and low habits that I scorn but always yield to will render me less worth such tears as those than any wretch who creeps along the streets. Be comforted. But within myself, I shall always be towards you what I am now, though outwardly I will be what you have seen in me before. The last supplication, except for one, I make to you is that you will believe this of me. I will, Mr. Carton. My last supplication of all, ever, is this, and with it I will relieve you of a visitor with whom I well know you have nothing in unison, and between whom and you there is an impassable space. It is useless to say it, I know, but it comes out of my soul. For you, and for any dear to you, I would do anything. If my career were that of a better kind, that there was any opportunity or capacity of sacrifice to it, I would embrace any sacrifice for you and those dear to you. Try to hold me in your mind, in some quiet times, as ardent and sincere in this one thing. The time will come, and it will not be long in coming, when new ties will be formed about you, ties that will bind you yet more tenderly and strongly to the home that you so adorn, the dearest ties that will ever grace and gladden you. Oh, Miss Manette, when the little picture of a happy father's face looks up in yours, when you see your own bright beauty springing up anew at your feet, think now and then that there is a man who would give his life to keep a life you love with you. And then he said farewell and one last bless you, and left her. And that is the end of chapter 13, which might be my favorite chapter that we've read so far. He is giving off such strong Eponine vibes in this. Like, I almost feel, except for the fact that he wasn't dying, that A Little Fall of Rain from the musical Les Mis should have been playing in the background of that. It would not have been out of place. In fact, I might have to go now and like pull up a video just to listen to that song because I love that song. Yeah, he is, or maybe instead of A Little Fall of Rain, maybe as he exits out of the room, we should have On My Own playing. Ugh. I really like that chapter. It might have been a fairly short one, but oh my gosh, that might have been my favorite chapter so far. I hope there are more like it. Anyway, like I said, it is time for me to take some Tylenol, rest my sore feet, who I definitely have not been keeping up with the couple of miles a day of walking, because walking almost 10 miles today, my feet hurt. And yeah, tomorrow we have a longer chapter, so look forward to that, and I will see you then. Oh, and don't forget to hit thumbs up on your way out if you don't mind, because it always does make me smile.